Hello and welcome back to We Bought a Mic, a pop culture podcast here with a very special review of ANDOR Season 1. All episodes now streaming over on Disney+. My name's Ernest, and today we're going to give you a big old deep dive into this great show. And I'm happy to be joined by Adam Sidorius from the Aggressively OK podcast. We're putting this episode out on both of our feeds. So if you go ahead and subscribe to his podcast and you see an ANDOR review, it's the exact same recording. So hope you enjoy our conversation about ANDOR. Here we go.
Usually anytime you're on the pod, you talk about one of these content things that's actually good, ?
Right, like better than at least above average.
Yeah. Well, what was the last was it Loki? Was that the one that you came on for the Marvel?
Yeah, I remember we talked about Mando season 2. So right. I don't know which one was more recent than that.
Yeah. Well, the point is it all blurs in the name and the game of the streaming wars and
content,
especially the Disney Plusification of it all.
Yeah. I'm excited. This is a cross pod. We're putting this up on both of our feeds on AOK and WBAM.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, we had to do the old Predator handshake meme here because of all our friends, we are the only two that are still on the Star Wars train. Everyone else has jumped ship.
God, what you compared to the other day, you were like, it's kind of comparing like people that have been clean for a few years. It's like
everyone else got clean, and I just feel like a fucking just heathen drug addict, like telling them like, no, they got the good stuff again, man.
Yeah, man. Well, and it's really
blue,
and it's really funny because you'd expect that to be from something like, I don't know, like a Moon Knight, which I liked, you know, or like a Boba Fett or like an Obi-Wan, you know, Ewan McGregor's back. You expect the good shit. But a Cassian Andor limited series, get the fuck out of town.
The guy from Rogue One.
Yeah, like no one's
like
favorite
the third
character.
Most memorable character in that movie.
And even the first most memorable character is not memorable. Like, yeah, you know, when this show came out or when it was announced, and much like, honestly, it's very much like the MCU, where when Loki was announced, both of these shows, I immediately went, I don't care.
Right.
Because especially like with Loki dying in Endgame or Infinity War. And then like
the obvious setup in Endgame of him like grabbing the cube and being like, here I go to my spinoff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did not give a shit.
Follow me on Disney Plus.
Exactly. You know, I mean, like even actually that's a Black Panther spoiler. I think that's a little too soon, but if you've seen it, you maybe know where I'm going with a certain character as a Disney Plus show coming out in that movie. But you know, with like Loki, I was kind of amazed by that show to an extent. You know, it still has some misgivings here and there, but I was like, oh shit, it's like about something and it's very character focused and colorful. And I really enjoy it for the most part. Andor, in the same vein, I saw it was announced. I heard like it had the biggest budget of a Disney Plus Star Wars show. I saw the cast and crew they were assembling, building practical sets, and I went, for Andor? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
guys?
It was like a scratch your head moment. I remember the first peak of it was at some maybe like Investor Day thing or something, and it was just like, what? Like, first of all, why are you even making this show in the first place? Yeah. And second of all, why are you like putting so much creative effort into this project that literally nobody asked for? Nobody was clamoring for the Andor show.
Yeah, no, I mean, right before the pod, we were discussing the Gilroys are in the mix. You know, not only are they in the mix, they're like the creative forces behind the show. You know, you have some really heavy hitter directors and writers per episode. I would say out of all, before jumping into like our full thoughts, I would at least say out of all the Disney Plus shows, and this includes Marvel, includes Star Wars, includes the Santa Claus limited series, It has
Santa Clauses.
Santa Clauses. Sorry, plural.
I can't believe that's a show.
Hey, Tim Allen
should just be a movie. Like,
yeah, I want to see that jolly beard on the screen again. By the way, how stupid do those conservatives feel right now? The ones that were like, Lightyear doesn't have Tim Allen. Is he canceled by Disney? And like 5 months later as a show.
It's like, no, I'm cashing that check, baby.
No, but what I was going to say was I think out of everything they put out, this has the tightest focus. It does not feel like it has an identity crisis. It doesn't feel like it had like a writer's room, even though it very well could have. It doesn't feel like that at any given point. It feels like one singular vision, to the point of where it does things as simple as like traditional TV cliffhangers that feel exciting just because it feels like an actual show. And I know that's kind of a low bar, but the way the show does it is just immaculate.
It's masterful. It's
truly, I would say, one of the best shows of the year. Definitely in my top 10.
Which is crazy. It's crazy because I've always been, ever since Disney Plus has been a thing, or even any like big sort of IP show, I always knock those down a few slots in my list because I'm like, you're fine. You don't need the recognition. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
This one I feel like has earned a spot in the top 10 just out of sheer just quality. And I guess the piece of it, standing out from the pile of content, it feels like this, what's the word? Kind of like, for some reason, the word that came to mind is rebellion. It's this rebellion against like the flattening of culture in the streaming age. And, I don't know if the top of the episode is the time for this conversation, maybe we can table this to the end, but like the sea of Disney Plus content, and I hate the word content, but it really is that. Like, as deep, the deeper that we get into these, and the more She-Hulks and Moon Knights and Obi-Wans, it just feels like more slop. And I'll eat that's what slop. They call it. I'm the first one. Yes, they do. Yeah. Like in the earnings calls, when they're discussing, like, the stars of it call it content. Like, I feel like we need to dirty that word again. Like, we need to like discipline ourselves and say, no, that's not a good word. That's not a good mindset to have when we're making. But doesn't She-Hulk feel like content? Doesn't Miss Marvel 100%. Feel like content? Like, it earns at a certain point, it earns the name if it's just like another tile that you click on your screen. And it doesn't feel like a real story, all I'm saying is, if you go like if you're a creative and you're going into it with the mindset of like, I'm creating content, just on a fundamental like principle level, I think that's bad for art. Even if it turns out to be really shitty, I don't think you should like go into it with that attitude. And to be fair, it's maybe the same thing why, like, I know like Avatar 2 coming out, and we haven't seen it yet, but like, and that's like a Disney vehicle, but it does not feel like one, because like it feels like James Cameron respects himself enough to like not call his stuff content. He calls it like, this is an experience. This is a film, and it really feels like if you asked, it's a real movie. And like, it feels like if you asked a Gilroy, like, what if they would consider this content, they'd be like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, they'd be like, fuck off, get the fuck out of my face. To the point of like, I was really surprised by like episode, I forgot what episode that you not meet, but when you see Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen, when you see his like collection at his shop, there's so many like Easter eggs in the shop of like Mandalorian armor and like Jedi robes and stuff. And to the point of where I was like, I didn't see that coming, because like I would have expected 0 Easter eggs in this entire show from the way it was just poised at the beginning. I guess it's a good point to jump into it, because at the beginning, it does not feel like any other Star Wars.
at all. It opens in a seedy, disgusting, rainy bar at night. There is not an ounce of real excitement. It opens very melancholy, almost like Blade Runner-esque.
Seeing things that we don't really see in Star Wars, these very kind of gray areas of the universe, all of the muck and the dirt of the underbelly. And there's always been, areas in the movies that suggest that, and that kind of like give you an idea that's there, but we've never had a story like really centered in that. And there's been times when like we were told that there was going to be a story centered in that, like Book of Boba Fett comes to mind, right? Like that
Solo to an extent. Yeah.
Solo. Right. Like that's we were led to believe that it was going to be that. And I think for the first time, we actually get a story in this world that really is fully, kind of birthed from that world entirely.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's really, and then, also to your point, like even the original, like A New Hope, like when they made Han Solo, it's at a grimy bar, but a lot of it's played for like laughs or like just world building of like seeing like aliens and creatures at a cantina, but there's something really interesting about seeing a depressing depiction of like this isolated planet. It's just like a place that like Empire and Imperial officials go to drink after a long shift. There's so many simple things like that in this show where it's like day-to-day things that are like Star Wars-ified, for lack of a better term, that feel very like specific. And it feels like the kind of world building that doesn't feel tiresome, but makes it feel real. The kind of world building that I think George Lucas was very fond of back when he was, doing his thing. It's really, I think the first episode is a great example of how to make the perfect pilot, because it establishes everything the series needs in like the first 10 minutes. It had, like, when I was watching it for the first time, I was in awe, and I got the screener link for it. So I saw like a week or two before it came out. So there were no reviews for it. I didn't know. I thought the trailers looked pretty good. I saw the Rogue One re-release, so I watched that like extended preview. I thought it looked cool. I was like, okay.
Oh, in the theater?
Yeah, and like it played like nice. A motherfucker, and because like it was episode 4, I think, when he officially fully meets Luthen. That entire like fight scene in the factory.
That's the end of 3.
Right? My bad. With 12 episodes, it's hard to keep up with which episode everything happens in.
The season is structured into sort of these mini arcs, so that might be a good way to structure the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that that's the scene that they showed in the IMAX preview, was that conversation between him and Luthen. And when I was watching that in theaters, I was like, oh wait, this is like compelling dialogue, and like I'm interested just based off acting and conversation.
You had no idea what was coming.
And then, of course it cuts like a reel of action and like special effects, which all looked good, but I was like, I'm really like hooked on that dialogue though. Like, do you have any more of that? Like, let me get in on that.
You got any more of that? You got another hit of that?
And that's the one thing I was worried about, clicking play on the screener for the first time was, how is it going to stick the landing, so to speak? And or even like in the first episode, will it prove me right? Like, is my anticipation valid? Because I think honestly, I was at the breaking point if this was not good, where I was like, if I anticipated a Rogue One spinoff show and it was bad, I'm Boo the Fool. Like, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. Like,
yeah, like they got your hopes up for something that just seemed like a bad idea from the jump.
Exactly. But no, like, I mean, from the minute this starts, dude, like it's like a concert. It's like amazing. And when I say it's a concert for people that love like noir and like weird niches of Star Wars, like the rebellion and like the little political undertones of Star Wars are very like broadenly explored in detail here.
Yeah, it's like what the prequels, what Lucas wanted to do with the prequels. A truly political story is what this is.
Yeah, I would say this as a whole is very reminiscent of the best aspects of the prequels and the best aspects of Rogue One. And it's exemplified into one massive season of television that is entirely good. There's not a bad episode.
It escalates. It gets better and better and better. And I gotta say, like, you know, they dropped the first three, and I thought those first three were good. Yes. I wasn't like head over heels, especially because, like, you know, like we've been saying, like this is the slop. This is the content slop. And I didn't want to get my hopes up, and I didn't want to like look like the fool that you were saying. And I watched those first three, and I was like, okay, this is very promising. Obviously, like, I love Tony Gilroy. Michael Clayton is a fucking banger.
One of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, he worked on the Bourne movies. Like the guy has street cred. Like, you know, we know he's good. And then some folks might know that he did a lot of a cleanup job on Rogue One. I like Rogue One. It's not one of my favorites. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that movie. I just think that it's, you know, it's fine. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a simple. It's very pretty. Like, it looks nice, but it's just a very simple story of like how the rebels were able to steal the plans for the Death Star that led to the destruction of the Death Star. And there's not that much more to it.
Yeah, I really, on that last IMAX viewing, because I used to be like one of those Rogue One is overrated guys. I really only saw it because my girlfriend never saw it in theaters, and she really wanted to go to the re-release. I know, classic, blame it on the girlfriend for why you went. But then I saw it, and I was like, I saw the re-release after not seeing it in a few years, and I was like, wait, is this great? Like, it
just hit different.
For some reason,
post Rise of Skywalker world.
You know, maybe that's it. And also, like, you know, post Boba Fett, post Obi-Wan, you know, it's just, you know, not things I necessarily hate, but, you know, to one degree or another are like underwhelming. And you rewatch Rogue One, and yeah, like, it has flaws. Don't get me wrong, it does. But like,
Tarkin's tough.
It's tough, yeah, you know.
CGI Tarkin.
But my main complaint used to be like the first act just blows, and then it gets better in the second, and then the third act rips, which made me feel kind of like uneven about the movie. If you watch it from the lens of like the first act is really about showing how messy the rebellion is, and that's why the movie is sporadic. And then the more the Rebel Alliance forms, the more cohesive the movie gets. And if you watch from that angle, it's kind of beautiful. Like, because that's what makes the third act, when they're on like a literal formation, hits so hard.
Yeah, the team comes together as the rebellion comes.
It's really good. Yeah, so maybe, you know, there's a lot of, you know, rewatching it and then watching Andor going into it. But I mean, like I said earlier, like in the first 10 minutes, you know, when he kills the guards on the planet, like in the opening, you find out that he is a guy who's not really. He definitely like leans towards the rebellion ideology, but this is a time where the rebellion's not a thing yet.
It's a lot of different rebellions, and we come to find this out later, that it's this very sporadic, ununified effort to chip away at the Empire. Yeah. And I think that, you know, just to kind of get at like my biggest takeaway from this show is I think the reason why I'm so kind of taken with it and why I think it's worthy of like genuinely trying to win people back into Star Wars. Cause I get it. Like Obi-Wan, it didn't do it. I'm sorry. It just didn't do it. Book of Boba Fett, even worse. Like as fun as it is to see those action figures come together and smash into each other, you know, oh my God, it's Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka. Oh yeah. It's like I get the desire behind why you want to do that. And it's probably setting up things that are probably going to pay off later, whatever. Yeah. As like a show, as a TV show, it made me feel nothing. It literally did make me feel, it was just something to put on the TV and just like disassociate, which is like the worst thing you could say about something as special as Star Wars. And
absolutely.
To watch this, now that we've seen the whole season, like it's so crazy that this is like in the same world as those shows, as Mando and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, because there's no mention of Jedi. I don't think they even say the word Jedi. You don't see anything in the world of Skywalkers and everything that's sort of like rooted in the iconography and the sort of roots of why Star Wars is as big as it is. This is taking a huge turn away from that and playing with these familiar building blocks that George Lucas laid, you know, the Rebels, the Empire, these types of things, and telling like a really, really compelling and interesting story in that world. It doesn't betray the world. Maybe it doesn't paint with every color in the palette of the world, which can be a separate conversation, but it uses those things to tell one of the most fascinating stories about like oppression and how terrifying and sinister an imperial force can be. Like when you hear about the Empire, it's like, oh, they're the bad guys. You know, it's very light and dark. It's very much like you and me on the Zoom call right now. Like I'm the light and you're in the darkness, and there's no mystery behind it. You know, I'm Luke Skywalker and I'm part of the good guys and I'm going to destroy the Death Star. Here we go. And I love it. Like, who doesn't love Star Wars, right? Like, I'm not going to go on here and talk shit about like one of the best movies of all time. Yeah. But this show is interested in the little details, the little in between connective tissue, the cracks in between. How does a rebellion form? Yeah. What you literally see to a rebellion?
You like literally see like the fucking IRS of the Empire. Like you see the like, you know, you
the
see
corporate security, like third party guys.
But and like I think the really like this is, and I agree with you. Like the first 3 episodes, I would say were like, I agree with you. They're good. And maybe
it's a solid setup.
It's a great setup. Even like I think in retrospect, if I rewatch them, I would like them even more. But like in the moment, I was definitely like, there's so many threads that I thought were great. I just wish there was more momentum. But then like, you know, when you get to 4, it's like no questions asked. But one thing I really liked in I think the first 2 or 3 episodes was how it shows, you know, how much the Empire and like the Imperial officers and all those people are really being fucked over themselves by their own system, especially Cyril, who is kind of
how are those cracks? Where do those cracks come from? The cracks that lead to the destruction of the Death Star and the fall of the Empire. How does that happen? How did those cracks begin to form from the start?
Yeah, and especially like with the Cyril character, who I would say is like one of the more compelling characters, not only in the show but in Star Wars in quite some time. Is you see this guy who is just so he has been spoon-fed like just propaganda his entire life.
He's a good old boy.
He's a good boy. You know, he straps up every morning, goes to work, his 9 to 5.
He has tailored his outfit.
Yeah, he runs that shit like the Navy. You can tell it's like a familial thing. Like it's like a job he was told he was going to get at the age of 12. And he goes.
But his coworkers look at him and they're all like, "Dude, you are taking this way too seriously." This is not that serious, dude.
And that's such an interesting angle, right? Because it's like so often, I mean, maybe you can point to me another direction of it, but like, I can't remember a time where you see an Imperial officer or an Empire figure in the Star Wars universe, other than, this is a very niche thing, it's Star Wars Rebels with David Oyelowo's character in that show, whose name I cannot remember.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I know. It's a deep cut, but like, this is different and it goes better. You see this guy who, for all accounts, if the Empire wants to win, they should run it the way this guy wants to run it. And like the higher ups are like scoffing at this guy. They're like, dude, shut up. Like,
go away.
He's a petty criminal. Like, let him go. Like, why do you care about Cassian Andor?
Yeah.
And at every turn, this guy is failed by this system, a very flawed system that he fundamentally believes in. You see both sides of it. You see the people that haven't quite formed the Rebel Alliance yet, angry and are forming a Rebel Alliance that are because they're so angry at the oppression of the Empire. But also on the flip side, you see a guy who fundamentally believes in the ethics or the lack of ethics of the Empire and wants to strengthen the Empire.
Yeah.
And you see both sides forming tighter grasps and formation of strategy. And it is captivating. And it is so reliant on
fresh for
dialogue.
Star Wars.
Yeah, 100. And that's the funny thing.
This whole show. This whole show is just fresh for Star Wars. We've seen this type of spy intrigue, heist, prison break type of story before, but for Star Wars, it's never been done.
Well, I would, because we were talking, when does the show get great? And I would say it gets great at the end of episode 3, where Luthen and Cassian kind of meet up for the first time. Bix,
you want to fight these bastards for real.
Yeah, that's when the show gets great because it ends on that great action set piece with him and Cassian. Cassian doesn't necessarily know if he trusts Luthen at that point. Even as an audience member, you don't know if you trust Luthen. In fact, at the end of the series, I don't know if I trust Luthen. That's the beautiful thing about the show.
It's such a well-written character, man. Stellan Skarsgård, he deserves an Emmy run for this performance because it's one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars. It exemplifies all the interesting things about this show, about how a rebellion is formed and the lengths that you need to go to fight an oppressor and the sacrifices that you have to make to your own soul. I mean, the speech that he gives.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
At the end of episode 10,
incredible.
I'm probably going to fire up that speech after we finish recording here, because just thinking about it now, it's just this delicious Tony Gilroy. It's actually Beau Willimon credited with writing that episode, but I'm sure Tony got his hands on that. But it's this delicious, perfect summation of the sacrifice that you have to make in your own soul, to your own sense of self and being in order to do what needs to be done to fight an oppressive force. It's unbelievable.
And that scene is so great too, because it's very much followed up after I forgot the guy Luthen's spy that he's kind of blackmailing straight up. I forgot that guy's name, but he gives a really compelling point about, he's I just had a baby, or I've already having a baby or something.
I want to live my life. I mean, that's all of us, dude. And that's all of us living in the world. The United States is an oppressive force. The United States is the empire. Yeah. We all live here and we're all complacent and we all just want to live our lives.
100%. And it's and that's such a great scene, because up until that point, you think it's almost you haven't seen this movie, but it's almost like Tar, where Tar is making great points. And then you realize the person against Tar is making great points. It's almost like that in a sense.
Yeah. Lydia. We're going to have her on the pod soon, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to call her. I know she's in deep water right now, but she's
gonna have to dial in from an undisclosed number.
But I think that scene, also up to that point, Luthen is a very questionable character as a whole, and you kind of question his motivations to an extent, even though he's told people what he means. But that's really the first time that it feels like he pours his heart out and you fully believe that he means what he says. And so you kind of agree with that kid, that young guy, and you're why anyone else could do this job. But then he goes into the reasoning for why he can't just pick somebody else, how deep this guy is in this position, and why Luthen chose this kid to do it, and how it's vulnerable. But you know what also sucks? Oppression, the Empire, all of these things, whether you like it or not, are bigger than you and are more important than you. And a rebellion, the potential of a flicker of a rebellion is more important than you. And it's devastating and it's heartbreaking and you're a hero for it, but it doesn't make it any less true. And it's so good.
we see Saw Gerrera in this show, and in Rogue One, if you've seen that movie, you know that Saw Gerrera is this really good representation of like what it means to be a person on quote unquote the good guys that's doing bad things and is going about the right thing in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get a ton to do in that movie, but just his presence in the story is enough to like start those gears going in your brain about like, okay, maybe the rebellion is not just like the stock good guys. Maybe there's more to it than this. And that is just this avenue that gets explored so fucking well in this show, because that's just so fascinating to me to think about like, what is the cost of a rebellion? What is, first of all, what is the actual cost, which we could get to when we talk about Mon Mothma, but what is like the real like existential cost of a rebellion, and what are the lengths that you have to go to actually succeed? And I have the Luthen speech pulled up right now. Do you want me to read it? Because it's not that long. It's like 2 paragraphs. Okay, so this is what he says. Because basically the guy, what's his face? He asks him like what he's had to sacrifice. He says, calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight. They've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost. And by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. No, the ego that started this fight will never be a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything. Just like all-timer fucking Star Wars moment right here.
Yeah.
Like,
all-timer.
Holy shit, dude.
Absolute home run out of the park. Yeah. It's really beautiful. Like it's really some of the best. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's like the best writing of all of Star Wars, ? I think like it, at least if not the best, it's damn close. Right. Because
it's certainly the most thought provoking. The most like able to dig into like real ideas. And
like I think Rogue One and I think Lost Jedi to an extent, they even like they really try to like at least set up the ideology of like the rebellion and like what those things mean. And I especially like with Lost Jedi, you can't knock it too much because that movie has so much going on. That's hard to be like a deep dive into rebellion. So that's where Andor, I think, really has an opportunity and successfully pulled it off, the opportunity to be a deep dive into the formation of the rebellion. I mean, you said it earlier, like with the Mon Mothma thing, if we want to go into that, like that's also some of the most compelling stuff in the show too, because you wouldn't think, it's a lot like what George Lucas was setting up with like the politics and the prequels, where you're like, why would the funding of the rebellion be interesting to me? And they make it so captivating. What Mon Mothma has to personally sell, like morally, ethically, like everything she with her fucking daughter, like that entire like mini arc towards the end, like what she has to do for that is like disturbing and devastating and like just deeply weird, and yet it's just feels very natural. That stuff is so captivating. But like all those conversations she has like with senators and politicians or just bankers, like people like little ins that she has, like people that are also deeply dissatisfied with the system they're playing a part in. Like I love that conversation.
But they're all in cushy comfort. Coruscant.
Yeah.
Then none of them are actually going to want to overthrow the Empire, because then they'd have to fucking live in the shit.
Yeah. And one thing I love about that entire dynamic is like how like just stupid her husband is, like how clueless he is to the entire situation. He truly has no idea what is happening. Like it's all happening under his nose. And it's getting to the point now where, especially where this season leaves off, I'm very curious to see how she leaves her family by the time, let's say, Rogue One is happening. Because
she's straight up one of the leaders of the rebellion. Like that's how that character was introduced in the old movies.
She's the face of it. Yeah, she's the face of the rebellion. I mean, that's why, in Return of the Jedi, when they're about to go on Endor, or before the trench run in A New Hope, she's the one giving the speech, Rogue One, like all these things, like she is the face of the rebellion. And it's really interesting now to see like her backstory and like how closely, I can't remember what episode it is. You're better at this than I am, but oh my God, it's a very brief scene, but when she's talking to the Senate and no one's listening to her, people are heckling her, and she's trying to like pass a guideline or a bill or something to like provide relief for the galaxy. And no one's there in the first place. And the people that are there couldn't give any less of a shit.
Yeah. That's somewhere in the middle. I mean, there's a couple different times that she has those, but
that
Senate.
one, like that really significant one where I think that's like her breaking point, where it's truly like all hope. Yeah. Like any hope of like getting this done from like a professional level of her like position and power, it just starts to disintegrate. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, man, because one thought I kept having is, especially because this movie is so tied to Rogue One, the word hope was used in that movie like so much. A rebellion built on hope, the whole moment with Leia at the end where she just says the word hope. That theme is obviously extrapolated from the original A New Hope, right? It's this recurring idea in Star Wars of our heroes having hope that they can prevail against the evil forces of the Empire. And it's returned to in the sequel trilogy, and it keeps coming again and again. And the genius of Gilroy and the other people that worked on this show is, instead of like relying on this kind of tried and true theme that Star Wars is known for, they invert it. And almost every single character is fueled by the disillusion of hope. In every situation. Even Cyril, his hope in the system that he has devoted his life to, there's a dissolution there that powers his arc. In Andor, the dissolution of hope that he can continue to live his life the way he wants to without engaging in it. And I think the Mon Mothma piece of it too, that she little by little loses hope in her ability to be this kind of infiltrator in the system, and she realizes that that's not going to necessarily work out. And I think the biggest one of all in the entire show to me is the Andy Serkis character in the prison. His hope, the hope that he can live out his sentence and take his clock down to zero, and that he can be this leader of his prison group, and have faith that sticking with this system, that he will be free. So, and that hope falls apart and fuels his arc. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I was gonna say, I think those are like, especially like the Andor point, because I think that also retroactively makes Rogue One and like his relationship with Jen even better, because like Jin is at the beginning of that movie kind of in a similar position to Andor at the beginning of the show, like someone who they definitely don't support the Empire and they see the wrong of it, but they think it's a worthless fight, Yeah,
they want to stay out of it.
Yeah, and that's what makes Andor, like, retroactively almost makes Rogue One a better movie, because it makes Andor's, capacity and like persistence on Jin to be a better person make more sense, because he's been in that position before. And now that you like visualize this and you see him in this position of like learning about what a rebellion can and should be, and all these people that are fighting for it to happen, it's just really inspiring. And also, you bring up the Andy Serkis thing, and I do want to talk about that. But first, I want to go into that entire, I would say from episode like, 4 to 6 or 7.
Oh, the heist.
The heist.
The money heist.
I don't want to brush over that, because it is...
Well, because the prison is so good that you forget how good the arc before the prison was. And it almost gets overshadowed. And it's like, we didn't, when we were watching the what's that planet called where they do the heist?
Aldhani. Yeah.
When all the Aldhani stuff, when I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, this is fucking amazing. And obviously I had no idea that the Narkina 5 stuff was coming around the corner. So it's just like, you have to you have to put your brain back into that mode of like, okay, we hadn't seen Narkina 5 yet. We didn't know what was coming. We were just watching Aldhani. It was like the coolest shit ever.
Yeah, I mean, because the Aldhani, I think that's a good way to put it, like the Aldhani arc and the Narkina 5 arc. But the Aldhani arc, as I was watching it, I was like, okay, so the show's going to peak here, right? Yeah. Like it's going to fall off.
Yeah, we're building to a heist. We're going to get the heist, and then that'll be like the best episode of the show. Yeah, yeah. And like the thing is, it's incredible. And like that's the moment, like I'd say when the heist starts. And again, we prefaced the beginning of the show is really solid, great setup. But I would say episode 4 is when it gets great. Episode 5 and 6 and 7, bangers.
Like all 3 back to back. I was lucky enough to like watch them back to back, and I couldn't talk about it for weeks. And I was like, just oh my waiting. God. It was like, and I don't normally do this when I get screeners. I usually like try to space them out. I like had, like I stayed up till like 3 a.m. one night, like watching all the screeners, because it was like one giant movie that I could not stop watching. Yeah. And the downside to this was having to wait a month for a new episode, which was painful. But getting to see that Aldhani arc play out in real time, like just as a binge almost, is like the most satisfying thing. Because before we even get to the heist itself, like the way it sets up each character in the heist,
we care about every single person. We understand to some extent like why they're there, what's motivating. And by the end it turns out that some of those motivations may have not been as honest as we would have wanted them to be, but in the process of meeting these people, we're like so invested in their journeys and the reasons as why they're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, and I forgot the character and the actor's name, but the guy from The Bear that's on the show,
Evan Moss Bachracker.
I forgot his name in the show. Skeen, is that his name? Yeah, Skeen. He is such an interesting character in the show because he is positioned almost aside from what's his name? The one who writes the manifesto, Nemec. Nemec. Like
Alex Lothar. Yeah,
I'd say other than him, he's the most sympathetic because he has a heart to heart about his brother. Earlier,
that's what I was referring to. That he wasn't as honest as we hope.
But that is such like. Because, there's so many characters in Star Wars that are like dishonest. Yeah. But I don't know if there's anything that's that much of a gut punch because of how convincing he is when he tells Andor that story about his brother and why he's part of the rebellion. And on the flip side, in episode, I think the 6, is it? When Skeen like turns. Yeah, not even turns, but he just shows his cards. And he tells Andor, he's like,
take the money.
Just take it.
Let's go.
He said it was all bullshit.
Yeah.
Andor asks about the brother and he's like, it's
I don't have a brother.
I don't have a brother.
But the way it's written, you could go either way. right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like a full on revelation that he was lying the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just in that moment, Andor thinks that he is. Cassian thinks that he is. And that's really all that matters. But when you really look at that scene, it's like maybe he was just testing Cassian to see how honest he was about being part of the mission and not robbing everybody.
Yeah. And the way I read it was like, I think he is honest about either he doesn't have a brother or the brother was not like the motivating factor for him to do this thing.
Well,
like he had a brother.
If the brother's dead. If the brother's dead, well, then he's right. He doesn't have a brother, right? Like he wasn't technically lying.
Exactly. But to the point of where like I think at the very least, it signifies that he's also a sympathetic character to the extent of like, you question like, well, why wouldn't he be selfless? Like, why wouldn't he want to genuinely like make an even cause, like split the money? And you have to wonder, it's like, well, he's been oppressed by the system like everyone else. And like everyone else is doing it in their own way. And not everyone has the idea of rebellion in their heads. You know, this isn't a thing that you can join yet. The rebellion is not an actual cause that's enlisting.
It's a series of decisions. It's a series of decisions made by people that are essentially ants to the Empire. Like these people's lives are being destroyed. And to the Empire, it's like stepping on an ant. And these are these tiny, tiny, tiny people whose lives are insignificant in the scale of this galaxy and this universe and all these different stories. But because the show and the creators have chosen to focus on them, they become everything. They become so important.
And it's also like some of the brilliance of like when you get Nemec's what do you call
manifesto?
The manifesto.
Oh, dude, when we hear it at the end in this finale, I just want to. Can they put out like the whole thing? Is Disney allowed to do that? Will they like accidentally fund like another insurrection?
I think they'll. Well, it's funny because I think it's so beautiful, just like the what's his name? Skarsgård's character. I think like Luthen's speech, it's so beautiful. You don't even hear the full thing of it. Like every time that kid speaks in the show, like when he's cut off at the beginning before they even attempt the heist, where they're at the campfire, and he's explaining to Andor about like, you know, that's how they win. They tire you. They desensitize you. That's what they want. They want you to be disillusioned to the idea that there's no hope to like persevere. They want you to think that it's a hopeless cause, that you're just part of a system that you can't break. That is the oppression. It
chills, man.
And they interrupt him, and I'm like, no, keep going. This is incredible. Like it's so good.
And it's so true to our reality. Like that's kind of like one of the things that really blows my mind about this show is that it has these really resonant anti-imperialist ideas, anti-capitalist ideas, especially when you get into Narkina 5. Like they might as well be in an Amazon warehouse, like working for Daddy Bezos, you know? Yeah. And it's like how there's something weird about a corporation as massive as Disney putting out this show that is so blatantly anti-capitalist and anti-imperial. It's wild. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what it means for Disney to be okay putting this out, you know, and communicating these ideas. Maybe it's like, I don't know. It's maybe that's a larger conversation about like how seriously they take this.
A few weeks ago, we were talking about it, and you said it kind of feels like it just slipped through the cracks almost. Like it really feels like that. And I agree.
They weren't paying attention to it.
Yeah, almost.
Everyone was
like
worried about Obi-Wan.
No, it's so funny because it goes exactly to the theme of Andor, and like you know, like how Andor kind of slipped the cracks, but you know, there's a few key people in the Imperial officers that are like, no, we should investigate this, you know, like
it's like, what? No, don't ignore that.
It's content. It's fine. Like it's
you gotta make the investors happy. Shut up.
But also to the heist point, just a little detail that I love. And again, this just goes to like how specific the show is, and just something I love about it is that what are they stealing? They're stealing like the entire payroll.
They're stealing coins, man. They're stealing big old gold coins.
They explain what they call it, like the entire
it's the payroll.
The payroll.
It's like the stormtrooper payroll. I don't know.
So fucking specific. I like for that, but like for the officers of that planet.
Yeah.
And like and I love that because like the first
but it's a big enough amount that it like rattles them.
Yeah. And I love that because like the reason they pull it off, and it kind of goes again to the whole theme that we're talking about here, is not paying attention. This is a very like even the I
They're
can't
comfortable.
Remember, exactly. And that's something that's mentioned all the time over and over. Like that's the first thing Andor tells Luthen when Luthen asks, how'd you steal this? It's like, well, they're not paying attention. They're comfortable. It's very easy to walk in and pretend like you're somebody else. All you have to do is pretend like you're supposed to be there and they won't bat an eye. Beautiful. But like even like the lead officer on Aldhani is like he's there with his family. They fucking hate the planet, and like even the wife is like, "You're gonna get a promotion after tonight. Just suck it up and go to the party." You know, like everyone there, all the lead Imperial officer does not care about that planet. Right. That he is literally gentrifying. That he is literally evading for its resources. He does not care.
Yeah, they show the natives with their celebration. Because there's like this whole like meteor shower.
By the way, beautiful visually,
amazing,
stunning.
And how it plays into the heist itself. With them evading literally, the TIE fighters crashing into the meteors.
10 out of fucking 10. It is
so good.
Fucking amazing. I feel like a dork right now, dude, but like
it's so good.
It's good. Yeah, it's fucking good.
I mean, they managed to make Star Wars cool again, man.
They did.
Like and this is coming from the same year, the same streamer that put out the big old reunion of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back as Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like snooze, yawn.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe that. Like I grew up memorizing the fucking Revenge of the Sith script. Like me and my brother like knew that entire fucking fight beat for beat, and we used to reenact it together. Like this was that Obi-Wan show. And it's not, I don't hate the Obi-Wan show. Yeah. It's like, it's fine. It's whatever.
Like a 6 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10. Like it's fine.
But that was like made on a silver platter for me. It was like, here's your entire childhood right here. And for me to just be like, nah, whatever.
No, I'm right there with you. Like Revenge of the Sith, when it came out, it was my favorite movie of all time. Like, no, granted, that was at a time in my life where I was like 8, so every movie I saw,
it was the best. Yes.
Yeah, like that was my favorite until Transformers, you know, and then that was my favorite until Spider-Man 3, and so on and so forth. But you know, I mean, Revenge of the Sith undeniably was one of the most formative films of my childhood, and the fact that I didn't eat Obi-Wan up to like the highest extent is like baffling.
Yeah, like what happened, man?
You know, maybe there was a pre-Rise of Skywalker time where I would have, because it's really a fine show. Like it's totally inoffensive. Like
it should have been a movie. If there's a good story there, good story there. All you got to do is just trim it down, restructure it, just make it build up. In the span of 2 hours, and
it was literally pitched as a movie prior to Disney Plus launching, and I think it just got reworked into a show. And you know, on the flip side with Andor, this is the thing where I kind of can't imagine it being a movie because it's so like
yes, exactly.
sprawling.
I mean, it is kind of, these mini arcs feel like movies, like you said. You binge those 3 episodes, kind of like a movie.
Yeah, the Aldhani thing could be its own movie. Like the Aldhani Heist could be a amazing movie. But
it all fits together, and each arc leads into the next one, and everything that we learn about the characters all carries forward. It's not like Mando, where it's almost just like the adventure of the week.
And I love
every episode. Yeah, no, that's fine for that show, but you don't have as much kind of momentum in that show that, you know, sort of like all clicks together. In this one, it's like every single week we're learning more about these characters. We're expanding the world. We're finding more and more ways for these themes to be expanded upon and explored. And yeah, this just to touch on a couple more details from this heist arc, like there's just so many other tiny little things, like when they're actually doing the heist and Nemec gets hurt with the stack of coins. I've never seen that in Star Wars before.
So
for
cool.
them to lift off and then like people get launched back and hurt because there's like heavy things moving around in the ship. Yes.
Not properly strapped down. That's the thing that when they're holding up the guys, that's what the guys are about to do. They're about to strap it on, but because they hold them up, they don't strap it on, and that's what kills
crushes
the kid. And
they're just little things like that, man. Those little
like,
details, they just add so much meaningful life and depth and complexity to the story.
And dude, it almost was like disingenuous to like not talk about all the little details, because like it's really like the little moments of this show that make it so good. So to even like brush over it makes me question, like, man, like why didn't we do like a weekly series about this? And like talking about the weekly, like, because like even like, you know, prior to that, like when that like sequence where they're holding up the guys and they're trying to convince you know, he's posing as the Imperial officer's trying to convince the guy that's like loading the ships that like it's okay, let them through. Like that it's like a 5-minute sequence of just like
it's riveting
pure negotiation.
Yeah,
and it's like that 5 minutes is better than any other Disney Plus thing in existence. Like that alone is better than anything else, and that's only a nugget of this entire show.
Yeah. What's
and
the sense of tension? Because you care about these people, you want them to succeed.
That's the Gilroy effect, is like it all feels, and you know, I know there's other writers and directors and like people in the, you know, creative kitchen, but you know, to an extent though, it is Gilroy's vision, I feel like, and that is all, you know, you brought up Michael Clayton before, you know, like, which is I would say the worst Bourne movie, but also maybe the most interesting, the Bourne Legacy. I called that the most interesting, boring movie of all time because it has it's a huge summer blockbuster that has the audacity to be boring on purpose. And I kind of admire it, even though I don't think it's good. Like, I think it's a great exercise in bad filmmaking. It's really interesting. But he's just such an interesting guy because you can tell he does not really give a shit about the genre stuff. He just likes a good story. And honestly, having a lot of
he doesn't give a shit about Star Wars. Have you heard him in interviews? They like ask him about like any type of lore, and he's
like Harrison Ford. Yeah,
I don't give a shit.
yeah. No, literally, and that's what I was talking about with like Luthen's collection. I'm like, I'm surprised there were any Easter eggs in that room, because like this entire show, it's not even like in a bad way, it just feels like devoid of care for that stuff. And that's not in any other show that would feel like an insult. I say that positively. Like we needed it.
Yeah. We needed a cleanse from that, you know, because I feel like Book of Boba Fett and Mando, it just reeks of like
Book of Boba Fett is just it's glup shitto, the series, you know, it really is. And
Obi-Wan too, like, you know, I love Ewan. I think he's great in that role, but he was just done so dirty, man. And
it's terrible.
I feel like Star Wars, like, it's not as bad as Marvel, because with Marvel, I feel like it's just gotten to the point where it's so up its own ass. And we were talking before we started recording about like the soups of the internet, SUPES, not SOUP.
No, and I feel fine making fun of that kid now with everything that's coming out. But I used to feel bad making fun of him because I was like, oh, he's just this cringy kid. But now I feel okay making fun of him again. But yeah, the idea of like the fans expecting just endless references, just endless like connections to like they'll only like things if it's referencing another thing that they like. And that's not a real story. Like you can't tell me that like that's better than actual storytelling with actual characters, which is what Andor is. Oh yeah. Like and that's what I kind of was getting at the beginning, because it feels like a lot of the stuff that we're championing here is just like television. It's just like writing,
right?
Like it feels like almost a low bar, like a low hanging fruit to like.
It's like, whoa, you made a real show.
Whoa, yeah, exactly.
You held the camera. You went outside.
Yeah, I had a friend ask me because he's much like, Drew and Hunter that haven't, they just won't touch you with a 10-foot pole because they've been burned so many times. Yeah. And honestly, I get it. Like, I understand.
Honestly, good for them, man.
I wish
they're outside. They're enjoying life. Here we are.
We've been in this fight since we were 7 years old.
Yeah.
I've
made my mind a sunless space.
But I had a friend ask me that, and he's like, how much of this is like, is it actually good, or is it actually great, or is it just like good in like a sea of shit?
Right.
And I'm like, and it's a fair question, because like if I was an outsider looking in, I would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that does push it above is that I think, because I've been keeping count of like, I've been ranking every show I've watched this year, and I watch quite a bit of genre shows. I watch all the Marvel. I watch The Boys. I watch horror. I watch sci-fi. I watch I watch everything out of all the genre shows I've seen this year, and I mean every single one. And I'm not saying this is the best show of the year, but I think it is the best genre series of the year. Easily, like it. Because actually, let me pull up my list right now. Because the only other one that I have currently on my list is House of the Dragon, which is like at the 10, and it's after White Lotus wraps up. I have a feeling I might get bumped out. But that being said, like,
I really like House of the Dragon. Yeah,
it's really good. But it's just so much of this is actually great writing. No matter how you shake it, it's not great writing for Star Wars. It's just great writing, period. It's great character work, period. You can't like watch the Luthen monologue that you like brought up, Cassian Andor. Like, I mean, oh my God, Andy Serkis' performance in this show.
We got to talk about them.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you see these things and you can't just call it good for Star Wars or good for Disney Plus. It's great, period. Like, it's just great. It's not great for Star Wars. It's just great.
Yeah. It makes every other show that Disney Plus has released look so bad in comparison. Awful. Like, it's just the chasm has widened like so drastically.
Yeah. But
it's not even close.
Yeah, and you brought it up. Though, like, let's talk about it. The Narkina 5 arc, which, I mean, again, because I really thought that the Aldhani Heist was going to be the peak of the show, and I won't lie. At the end what is it? At the end of 7, where they sentence Andor to imprisonment.
Yeah, that's like the transitionary episode. We go to like Space Miami.
Yeah, which is literally feels like Miami Vice and in space, which is just dope. I love it. And at the end of that episode, I was like, wait, what? We're doing this? We're doing a whole other arc? We're not just going to the rebellion?
That's random.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was really like, oh, this is where it's going to fall off, huh? Boy, I did not know what I was talking about. Dude,
just 3 of the best episodes of the whole year. Oh my God.
And honestly, in particular, I would say episode 10 is like maybe the best. I would say like it's in the top 5 episodes of television that I've seen this entire year. It's like immaculate what they accomplished with this. I mean,
we know we're getting a prison break the entire time. Like, we know it's coming, right? So that's not even a surprise, knowing that 10 is going to be a prison break. But it's about how it happens and how we feel as it's happening. That's the key, is that we're not just watching like, oh yeah, they're going to break out of prison. Okay, cool. It's like, we're like, let's fucking go, dude. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm like, literally, like, as it's happening, I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm like cheering them on with my whole pussy, like all the way.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of, I honestly, the big lingering question is like not even like you said, it's not whether or not there's going to be a breakout because Andor has to escape in order to help form the rebellion, blah blah blah. Like all these things that is like in so many other shows that would be the downside of a prequel is like knowing, but the writing is so good that you forget and you almost don't care.
Yeah, we know how Cassian's story ends. Seeing Rogue One.
And that's just, I think that's also a sign of good writing is like to the point of where that should be a detriment. And that's honestly why I wasn't excited in the first place. But like literally from the moment this starts, you just don't give a shit. Like, because it's not about the end game. It's about seeing, it's a lot like Better Call Saul. I'm not saying it's as perfect as Better Call Saul.
Well, it's the same general idea of understanding that your audience is not going to care about what happens. It's how it happens.
Exactly. And it's all, Better Call Saul is a show that I when it was coming out, I questioned a little bit, but Vince Gilligan of it all, I was like, okay, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. And, I don't have to recite that for the audience. Anyone that saw that show, they know that it developed into one of the best shows. Some people even say as good as or better than Breaking Bad.
Some people on this podcast, maybe.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think it's on par. I wouldn't say better, but I think it is as good by the end. But even though the final season is like some of the best Breaking Bad ever.
It's fucking incredible.
It's incredible. But what I'm saying is, like this is very much in that vein where it's like you would think it would be more of an issue and it just isn't. And so the question's not whether or not like is Andor going to get out? No, it's about the how, and also like one of the big like defining things is whether or not Andy Serkis' character is going to be enlightened to this ideology.
Not Snoke.
Not Snoke. Well, hey, listen.
not Snoke.
we didn't see him die, and we didn't see. Oh God, I saw before we started the pod, we were talking about how sometimes we watch cringy like theory videos just to like make ourselves feel better. And I saw this guy with his like just fully serious was like, here's how Kino from Andor could be Snoke. And like it's just like him giving like the most fucking brain dead reasons for like, and I was like, shut the fuck up.
Did you hear about the Luthen is a secret Jedi theories?
I saw the thumbnail and I could not get myself to click on it. I just couldn't do it.
Would have been so stupid. I mean, I trust at this point. I trust Tony Gilroy. If that's what he wanted to do, if that's the story that he wanted to tell, like I trust that he would find a good way to tell that story. Yeah. But like, dude, you're watching. Like, look at the show you're watching. This is clearly a show that's not interested in that. Yeah, and it's not interested in giving you a secret fucking Jedi at the last minute.
No, literally, and it's like. And the person writing that or like making that video or whatever is like they want it to happen because they're like Yaddle had a mentor that we never saw and like here's how Luthen could be the secret. Like shut the fuck up.
Or maybe they're not enjoying the show because Jedis were my heroes from when I was a kid and this show is not making me feel like I did when I was a kid because there's no Jedi in it and it's
And I hate to be like almost gatekeepy of these shows, but
fuck that.
But I almost want to say like if by Narkina 5, if by some fucking reason Aldhani didn't captivate you, if by Narkina 5 you are not fully invested in like what the show is doing, just stop. Because like
there's so many other Star Wars things that I could watch on Disney Plus right now. Like if I want Jedi, I can click like 16 different things that have Jedi in them. It's there. There's
Tales of the Jedi came out last week. We are not malnourished when it comes to Jedi content. Yeah. Like, and like, I mean, for the longest time, the argument that I heard against Star Wars in general was too many Jedis. Let's diversify it. And now there's too little Jedis. Like, make up your fucking minds. Like,
dude, it's fucking Star Wars fans, man. They're just There's no
fucking brain
them.
dead.
There's
and
no pleasing them.
And I want to clarify for anyone that doesn't know, there is a difference. We are Star Wars fans, and then there are Star Wars fans.
Yeah,
there's a difference. There is a huge difference.
Yeah, no, like I have the one free Andor poster that I got at the movie theater. We're talking about like the people that have like the full racks of shelves of like different Luke Skywalkers and Darth Vaders posing, like
the hot toys,
Funko Pops, like
okay, hey, look, my Chewbacca Funko Pop is kind of getting angry at you right now, but the only Star Wars poster I have in my room, you can't see it obviously, but I have a Rian Johnson signed Last Jedi poster.
Oh, nice.
From
Celebration.
Exactly, from Celebration. I got that limited poster, and it's great.
Before The Last Jedi came out, I'm sure.
That was. I always
Different
said
times.
my love for Star Wars died during the end credits of Last Jedi, not because I love The Last Jedi, but that was the last time I felt hope. Until this show, honestly, and that
Justice for Broom Boy.
Justice for Broom Boy. That's I mean, it's funny because I love Mando, and like we talked about Mando on the pod before. I love Mando. I think that show, even in post Andor, I think honestly Andor is going to be a great litmus test for people for these shows, because I think any show that does not measure up to Andor, you can disregard. Obi-Wan, Boba Fett do not measure up. Mando, I wouldn't say like measures up in quality, but it's still satisfying in retrospect.
Well, it's just a different flavor. I mean, Jon Favreau is clearly a massive, massive fan of Star Wars, and with his partnership with Dave Filoni, it's just big kids playing with their action figures.
And that is great. Like
there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
No, not at all. And like I think something that's really interesting about the kind of like Mandalorian like side pocket of the universe is a lot of that is just built on emotion and not necessarily like references. Like a lot of it is just genuine storytelling and character work that has paid off over like 3 years.
Well, it's Filoni. It's all from his head, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like Filoni really is the godfather of Star Wars at the moment. He was the last apprentice of George Lucas. So maybe that's why it feels so authentic when he does it, because he was the successor of George Lucas. But
he's the Vader to Lucas's Emperor.
Exactly. No, literally, quite literally. Like he was literally his Padawan.
Yeah.
But that being said, and I love Filoni. I've met the guy, super nice guy.
Was he wearing the hat?
He was wearing that. I was with him in an elevator at Celebration and after a press conference, and he was nice enough.
Is he a short king?
He's like 5'8", I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a short king. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But I love the guy, but I think it is nice to kind of have a little bit of flavor in here with the Gilroy. Because there is a part of like Filoni where I feel like every Disney Plus Star Wars thing has had the Filoni print on it, and that's fine and good, and I enjoy most of it.
People love it. Like it's successful for a reason,
And like I'm part of that. Like I enjoy most of it. I have stayed up till 3 a.m. for a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like I am maybe the problem, but there is just something.
Trust me.
Okay. But there's just something deeply satisfying about having a different cook in the kitchen in the same way. And I know this is a hot take for some people, but get shit on. Rian Johnson is also like a fresh cook in the kitchen, and he made one of the best Star Wars.
And again, everyone hated it.
And if you disagree, get dunked on. Glass Onion's amazing, but like it's really in the same vein for me, where it feels so different, and it's clearly and quickly becoming one of my favorite things. But again, and a lot of this is exemplified through the Narkina 5 arc, which is some of the best Star Wars ever. It's really amazing in hindsight of how simple it all is.
Yeah. And it shows how terrifying the Empire can be. And this show shows that in a lot of different ways. I mean, we've touched on the Cyril character a little bit, and the Deidre Miro character as well, and their sort of little romance that they got cooking up a little bit.
It's a little like Phantom Thread-esque.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah. And through that side of the story, you see a lot of, it's one thing to have Darth Vader like slice up a bunch of dudes with his lightsaber or fucking choke a guy out with the Force. Like that is one side of the Empire being terrifying. What we see in this show is like a whole nother layer of terrifying. And to me, it's much more effective because the Force doesn't exist in our reality. Lightsabers don't exist in our reality. Darth Vader doesn't exist. But what does exist is corporations exploiting labor and tricking people into thinking that they are operating within a corporation with some type of agency and with some type of control over their situation within this oppressive system.
I mean, not to like jump ahead, but like it's a literal light at the end of the tunnel situation. And that's almost akin to like, we brought up how Kino, Andy Serkis's character, is very like, he kind of represents all these themes that you're touching on right now. And like when he's running to the ocean at the end, it's very much a literal light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
That he can't, even when he gets to the end of the light, he can't swim. It's like literally like that metaphor is literally interpreted in this show for him. And I genuinely like, unless I'm just forgetting, and like, you have a case to be made for like Caesar and stuff, but dude, is this Andy Serkis's best performance?
I'm a big Caesar head.
Me too.
I love Gollum too. Like his mocap work is amazing. It's great to just see him, because we just know him as like this mocap king. Yeah. But in terms of like his non-mocap work, I think so. Yeah. I definitely think that this is it. I mean,
100%.
He puts in great work here. He starts out as just this stoic, like overseer boss man who just wants to run a tight ship, a tidy operation, and make sure that, they clock in and clock out and build all these massive Lego sets that turn out to be the Death Star. Ray. It's the Ray, the Ray on the Death Star, right? That's
from what I got. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone was speculating, like, what are they building? What are they building? I think it would have been cool to just like assume it's the Death Star without ever showing it, but of course they show it at the very end.
When they were building it, this was like literally maybe the only point I was thinking about like glup shido type shit. I thought he was building K2SO. Because it almost like looked robotic, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if he like built a android for the Imperial Army, but he programmed it differently and he helped him escape.
But these are big pieces.
Yeah, I meant like at the very beginning when he's like getting like the parts, I was like, is it? But then you kind of assume later as the arc goes on, and that's I kind of called it at a certain point. I was like, oh, if it's not Death Star, it's it's something like a big weapon. But
in the moment it did feel cool for you to be in their perspective of just like you have no idea. All you know is you have to put this thing in this thing and move it and then repeat the process.
It's terrifying because like, I mean, that one older guy that's on the crew with Andor, and he has to he's at the end of his route. Like he's almost at like day
a month away. Yeah.
Yeah. And his hand, he can't like put the screw in. He can't use the material. Like his hands, his like fingers are numb from being overworked and exploited. And, just like how so much of like the earlier episodes are about, very real things. This, I think more than anything is very much, this is like so not foreign to the real world about the prison industrial complex shit that is happening today. Watch The 13th, a great documentary on Netflix by Ava DuVernay, if you want to see a bit more insight about it. Like, these are things that like happen on the daily, and like
this is how our society is built. Like, this is why we're able to order something on Amazon and have it arrive and then within 24 hours. Like, this is real. Yeah. This is real shit that they put in a fucking Disney show. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. It's really, really insane. And it's great because it doesn't do any half measures when it comes to this stuff. And that, you know, that could be said about the series as a whole, but I think it's really, again, so much of the best things about this show are really solidified in this arc. Like, everything that you thought was true about the show or thought was great about it is just like reaffirmed here. And it's like, yeah, if you loved it before, we're just going to keep doubling down on it. Like, we're going to keep finding it more. Yeah. And it's just 3 straight episodes, just like The Heist. It's 3 straight episodes of character work, tension, ideologies, like metaphors, like just great dialogue. Just like, I mean, dude, visually it's stunning. The like even like
very unique sets. Yeah.
If you want to get down to the technical aspects, like the production design, the geography of that prison, just the design and the layout, and how you as a viewer by episode 10, I would say you kind of fully understand the inner workings of that prison. So like when the heist or the breakout is happening, you fully understand what division of the prison means and how, like,
you know where they are, where they have to move to, what they have to do, how they need to get the other people to move out of where they're at in order to overtake the entire thing. Like, you understand, they've communicated everything for you to know, like, okay, here we go. All the pieces are set. And, you know, from a character perspective, I think that throughout the majority of this show, Cassian is sort of this passenger to the plot. And he has a little bit of agency here and there. Obviously, like, there's the whole relationship with his mother that kind of really grounds him and humanizes him. Fiona Shaw, by the way, we haven't mentioned, is incredible.
Great his hunt for the sister that you never fully see as an adult. Yeah.
So there's like little things, but for the most part, what really catches our eye are all of these other characters. You know, Cyril and Luthen and Marva. Marva's the mother. Belle. Belle, the blonde lady. So there's this extended cast of characters, and then obviously here in this arc we get Kino. And what starts to happen is, as the hope is snuffed out of Cassian, and he's in this prison, and he starts to basically realize, like, the position that the Empire has put him in and how much they've taken from him and how much they plan to take from him. He has to dig deep to find his desire to rebel. Right. It's not going to come from anywhere else. He's not going to be, it's not going to be, Obi-Wan and Han Solo telling him to hop on the Millennium Falcon and go on this great journey out of Tatooine.
No Luke Skywalker. He's not going to cut through, like at the end of Mando, where he kills all the stormtroopers and stuff. Like,
it has to come from here.
100%. And, and then like another thing about that is, like, he not only has to, like, take agency and, like, the fact that he's in this position and, like, take charge and, like, kind of come to terms with, like, what his motivation is. He's really coasted on the fact that he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have an ideology that he's following, so to speak. He has a moral compass to an extent, but not an ideology, I think is the best way to put it. But it's also here that you kind of see the formation of a leader.
Right.
You see the formation of him not giving orders for the sake of being superior, but he knows he's the voice of people that have no voice. He can be the voice of people that know he sees the anger of all these people. And he, in the last few episodes, and that's what makes this all such a great season of television. It's a very clear path of character arc. is he kind of learns that he has to put his anger and his frustration into a cause. And he sees all this frustration, especially in Kino. And again, this is what makes Kino such a great character. He sees all this bubbling under the surface of Kino. This guy who he knows he's just one bad day away from turning and just fucking dismantling the entire fucking system. This guy that knows the inner workings of the prison in and out, and yet he still refuses to even entertain Andor.
Yeah, he won't
when
budge. He keeps trying.
Yeah.
There's that episode. I think it's episode 9.
9, yeah.
Where
and 10 a little bit, or no, yeah, 9 actually, yeah.
No, because the end of 9 is never more than 12.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is just like I'm just 12, like fucking shaking my fist, like let's fucking go.
Absolutely, the best cliffhanger for maybe any episode of television, other than Better Call Saul this year. So
just like clapping like as loud as I possibly can, just hooting and hollering.
Yeah, Lee's like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" Yeah, it's so good. So you kind of that not only is what makes Kino such a good character, but it kind of solidifies Andor as a great leader because he sees these sparks of rebellion in individuals, and he sees. In the importance of individuals, but he sees also the importance of the collective, of individuals forming together as a collective, and that's how you dismantle a system. And this prison that they're in is very much representative of a system within itself. Yes, it's a system built on the Empire and Imperial force.
Hey, it's also shaped like the Empire symbol.
Dude, yes, absolutely. Like it's so cool. So fucking good. Yeah. It's so like, dude, like the fucking like symbolism of the show is like next level. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Cassian is guiding. He's guiding Kino. He's not. He's not forcing Kino to rebel, and he's not. Telling him that he needs to do what he says. Like he's
just showing him the truth of the situation.
The moment in episode 10 when Kino Loy gives his speech, the one way out speech, that's such a crucial moment because Cassian like makes the choice not to take the microphone. He says it has to be you. It has to come from you.
So good.
And I think that to have a show like this that is already like having us look at these, really tried and true concepts and stories in different ways and in different lights, to see a hero step back and let someone else take the spotlight and have their hero moment. That feels so special. Like that was such a good moment.
That goes to my point though, because it's like, I think, when I said like Andor kind of through the system kind of learns the importance of being a leader. And that's what I mean. Like he doesn't just understand the importance of himself as a leader. He sees the importance of like what a leader means to everybody else. He understands that these people believe, even if they don't believe in the system, they believe in what Kino is telling them. They trust Kino. They believe Kino. He sees the importance of that, what a message from a leader can do. And I think there's also a point where Andor becomes kind of selfless. He says, okay, I know this is like my breakout, but I'm going to back up and like give you the platform to have this conversation. He still has
to push him. Yeah. Like Kino still like he tries it a little bit and then he kind of backs off the mic for a second. And then Cassian has to be like, is that all you got? Like, come on.
And it's beautiful. Like the way they like, when he finally, has that speech and like it's overcutting with like, the prisoners like, taking on the guards or like getting inspired and they're like, going for it. It's like, again, I feel like we said this 10 times in the pod already, but it's some of the best Star Wars ever, like that I've ever seen. It's at least it's the best depiction of the Rebel Alliance on any form of like Star Wars ever. Like it is
such a raw way. Like they're not like this. They don't feel like a hero, like a stock, like movie hero, they're not put together. They're not like suited up, ready for battle. It's scrappy. Half of them are dying. Half of them don't even know where they're going or what they're going to do. All they know is that they have a chance and that they need to take that chance. Yeah. And that this is the only time they'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely. And it's so beautifully like articulated like through this entire the prison break is amazing. And again, it's all really put on the cherry top at the end with the I can't swim. It's heartbreaking. It literally, again, and this just goes to show it's like genuinely good writing when like 3 lines of dialogue can fucking wreck you. Like it just breaks your heart. And
he knew the whole time too. He knew that was the only way out.
Yeah, and I mean, well, because like, did he know that there was no? Did he know that's the route he was taking? That like,
well, he knew that they were surrounded by water, but
I don't think he knew it was like that high up, or that there were like no vessels or boats or ships.
Right, or exactly.
Yeah, and it has that question at the end of like, is it worth it? Like even though it goes to that goes to Luthen's speech.
The sacrifice.
The sacrifice that you're willing to make, even though you might not see that sunset. You may not see. And it's it's so fucking good. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating, and it's incredible. It's some of the best Star Wars, easily the best Star Wars we've gotten in like 5 years, I would say.
Since the Last Jedi, for sure. Definitely. And it honestly gives The Last Jedi a run for its money. As much as I love that movie, that's still just like a 2.5 hour experience. Yeah. And the highs of that movie are unlike anything else. Like, I love Adam Driver in that movie. I love Mark Hamill in that movie. Everything with Yoda in that movie is perfection. Yeah. But I think that what this show is trying to do with exploring the ideas and the themes that it's doing and the writing, oh my God, like, it's tough to pick. They feel different, they feel like they're kind of just 2 different areas of this world, and it feels good for Star Wars to finally be getting to that place where it's like, okay, we can finally have a story that's completely detached from Skywalkers and Jedi and all that. And we can always have that. We can always go back to that. Maybe not too much, maybe we can go back to it in different ways. We'll see what happens with some of these other shows and stuff. But I think that as far as like the accomplishment of like breaking away from what we've been led to believe is the only way to tell stories in this world, it's like, okay, finally we can forge this different path.
And again, like also so we have like, there's 2 more episodes even after that, like, because it's like there's the Daughter of Ferrix, episode 11, which I would kind of consider like, it's a great episode, but it's almost like kind of simmering down. And it's like kind of like, because this is a show that very much knows how the audience is going to feel. So like it progresses the story, but like in a less, because for like the last 3 episodes, you've been kind of holding your breath about the prison, and they know how like crazy episode 10 is. So they're like, okay, we need a break, a little chill. And there's like not a lot to talk about in that episode. Like it's a very good episode, but a lot of it's just, a lot of great character work, There's Cassian. The Luthen with the tractor beam. Yeah. It's like, there's like the little bit with like Saw Gerrera again, some really great moments in the episode. But all of it's kind of just building up to the finale. And then, Cassian making the decision, is he going to run away, from his home, or is he gonna like go back there with the, because he knows the implications of what could happen if he returns home. He knows that it's his mother's funeral. It's his mother's funeral. We pretty much know. Doesn't he find out? He finds out at the end of episode 11, right? Yeah. So up to that point, he's kind of questioning whether or not where he's gonna go, and when he finds out that his mom died, that kind of just solidifies it. And it's heartbreaking when you find out, like, because you never really got to say goodbye to his mom, and it is heartbreaking. But again, I guess to jump to like episode 12, unless you have anything specifically to say about episode 11. No, just that we needed to set all these pieces up for the finale, because they all converge on Ferrix. 100%. And like that, Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like with Ferrex and like episode 12, like a lot of that during the funeral scene where you have the hologram of what's his mom's name again? I forgot her name in the show. Marva. Yeah.
Marva.
That hologram she has where she's kind of God, I forgot what exactly she said, but where she was like, I've seen so many people die, I've heard so many of these holograms, and now it's like I'm staring at a ghost.
Yeah.
And
another great speech. It's like the climax of this entire season, the finale is just a speech to inspire a rebellion.
Yeah.
And there's so much weight on that idea just because of everything that we've seen. And I think that the big takeaway here is that there's so many instances in Star Wars and stories similar to Star Wars in which our heroes are activated by a single event. Batman sees his parents killed in front of him, and Spider-Man sees Uncle Ben killed in front of him, and it's like this one thing that like turns them into a hero and defines their story. And I think what we see throughout this season is that for Cassian, for how he becomes a hero, and for this entire story and all the characters that we meet, it's a ton of different events and a ton of different decisions, and it's a much more kind of complex tapestry of instances that add meaning and context to who they are and how they become the heroes of this rebellion. And I think that's what that speech signifies. It's not just about the speech. The speech is just it's the straw that
catalyst. Yeah, no, completely. Like, and that's why that scene is so good in 12, because I love like, how everyone's at the funeral and the Imperial officers, they legally have to let it happen. Yeah. But everyone's kind of on edge. You're like, they don't know what the hologram's going to say. They're like, because one thing I love about that is that now between the heist and everything with the prison outbreak, there are these sections of rebellion. I forgot who says it in the show. I think it's Mira that says it, but she says like it's these little people like don't pay attention to the sparks of rebellion, but that's what you should be paying attention to, because that's really the scariest, most dangerous thing for the Empire.
It feels I think, sporadic and unorganized.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you kind of see it in this episode, that for the first time ever, these Imperial forces are getting scared. They see the threat forming. They know what one speech can do. And they're so on edge because they're right before the hologram plays, like every officer, like the close-up of their faces, they're like, oh shit, like it's about to happen. Yeah. And, and right. And it does disappoint. It's a great fucking speech. Like, she uses her last speech ever, the last thing she will ever be remembered for rallying and organizing one last chance. I love that line where she's like, if there was one thing I would do if I was still alive, it's fight. Even if it's a losing battle, even if I have no chance of winning, I would fight these bastards. Yeah. And like, dude, when I was watching it, I just like threw my fist in the air. I was like, oh my fucking God. Like it's so good. And like, it's so satisfying because literally
right before it starts, when the motherfucker kicks the droid over, when B2 Emo gets, I was like, no.
Underrated.
I was ready to start punching them myself. I was like, where the fuck are they? Let's fucking go.
Move over, BB-8. Like B2 Emo. He's literally emo. Like he is like literally like the like he's like a monotone droid, and I fucking love him. He's
so good.
But I love him because he's so like he really cares about Cassian and Marva. Because like when Marva dies, he doesn't want to leave.
It's so sad,
dude. I'm not kidding. If anything happens to this droid, there will be hell to pay.
Yeah, Tony Gilroy, like, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I'll have your fucking head. I swear to God. jokes legally, but it's like he's so good. And like honestly, that's like the one glup shitto thing that like if they like had some like bullshit where like Leia Organa at the end of season 2 like adopts him for some fucking reason and like gives him the Mandalorian so he can be in the future shows, so be it. Like I'll accept it.
So he can explode with everyone else on Alderaan.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. Like give him the Mandalorian so he can be with Grogu.
Okay, good.
Because oh my god, would the Mandalorian not be 100 times better next season if it wasn't B2 Emo, Grogu and Mando as a throuple? Like, oh my god,
B2 would be old. He's still. Well, I mean, how old is C-3PO? Like he's.
Oh
well, yeah. C-3PO is a fucking ancient motherfucker.
But yeah, no. The droid's a highlight, and that entire the rebellion forming in this is really great. And we already talked about it, but like that scene with Mon Mothma's daughter kind of being courted with I forgot that guy's name, but his son.
Well, it's because she needs money, right? Like she's running out of cash to fund the rebellion, and she's worried.
So icky. Like
it
feels terrible. Like
it's just adding more kind of context to what's pushing her away from that world. Yeah, she already feels on the outs.
And and then like also like with not that it's a very Luthen heavy episode, but like the whole episode is kind of gearing up a little bit. He's kind of having to make that choice whether or not he's going to pull the trigger on Andor, and like there's so many like little seeds being planted. One very interesting thing I thought was that like oh god, what's his name, Miro and Karn. Like I love how that's like kind of the pinpoint they have in the season where Miro like kind of kiss. Miro fucking hates this kid. She like is so disgusted by him. She's just like, but in that moment he saves her and she's kind of like, do you have value? Like, are you, for the first time ever, she's like, I think you actually have a point. Yeah. It's great.
The whole speech that he gives her in that one episode where he's like stalking her, terrifying. It's terrifying, but that's what we were getting at about like, how this is his hero's journey too. You know, that speech that he gives, it might as well be Luke Skywalker talking about how much he believes in
the greater good.
Like it's
no, 100%.
It's a very interesting character, and I it's so crazy. Like at the beginning of the show, I just assumed that this guy was just like a throwaway, and he's like almost like the second lead. Well, maybe not the second lead, but like the third lead, he's
definitely a focal point. Like, and I mean, no, completely. It's so he's such a lovely, terrible character.
He's our favorite fascist.
He's our favorite fascist. Like, and honestly, that's a great point. Like it is his hero's journey, and isn't that like so real to like actual oppressors? Because it's not like real world oppressors go to work and they have the ideology that they are oppressors. They think they are the heroes of their story. They think that what they're doing is like all these people that are very complacent about fascist regimes, or even like, like sections of like government or whatever that, very much exploit or threaten people on a daily basis. They really think that, they are the good guys. They think they are servicing a larger system, that these people that are painted as villains are that, when in reality they are not. And that's, and that kind of goes to like a much deeper philosophical question of like, is he a villain or is he just another victim of a long-term like? I was almost wondering if he was going to flip for a minute. Season 2, dude, I would not put it past them. And I think how satisfying would that be if they were playing that long game with like him eventually down the line. I'm not to like go for like full like prediction on like in a glup shitto way, but like I think
anything could happen. Anything could happen because like we're only getting one more season, and we know it's going to connect to wherever we meet Cassian at the beginning of Rogue One. So it's like, whatever gets you there, like they could really do anything.
I kind of think Miro is going to fuck him over, and that's what's really going to break him. Like, I really think he's going to see how thankless it all is. And I don't know if he's like going to join the rebellion, so to speak, but I think he will like.
He'll do something that helps them, that favors them in trying to catch Cassian.
Yeah.
And he's going to be like, he's like so obsessed with Cassian Andor, and Andor's like, I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, I don't even know. Because it's so funny. They don't like, they never, do they ever meet? No, not this entire series, right?
I think they see each other.
Yeah. Like
they might have like one interaction at the beginning, but.
Yeah, like nothing. It's so like, literally Cassian would not recognize him on the street. You know what I mean? Right. And it's so funny in retrospect. But yeah, I mean, and also like where this season or like this episode leaves off, with like Andor, coming onto Luthen's ship and like telling him like, kill me, like, fucking do it. Or and I think, it's still up in the air about, how far Luthen can be trusted with Andor. I still kind of think it might go the way of like Woody Harrelson and Solo, where Andor might have to like shoot him first, with like a mutual understanding, or maybe Luthen dies heroically. I don't know, but isn't that wonderful that I don't know? Like, I'm
really curious about Luthen because I feel like he's like a really important part of the rebellion. He's like a totally new character in this show. This show got a chance to add a lot of lore to Star Wars. Yeah. A lot of like big additions to the overall story. And that's fascinating, man. I thought, you think that they would just let them kind of play in their own corner and not really like have much to do with the backbone of Star Wars. And they're getting to do a lot. And I think, just someone like Luthen is a big part of that. And I don't know what they're going to do with him. I feel like he's not going to survive. Like there's no way, but
I have no clue how he could, unless they give him like a literal sun, like he does see the sunset. which I think would be beautiful.
No, he's a secret Jedi.
He was actually on Endor in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Which is something that what's his name? Dave Filoni pulled about Captain Rex from Clone Wars. He's like, oh no, he was on Endor, and everyone was like, what? Like the clone was on Endor? Like he's like, yeah, he's like a reformed clone. It's fine, and
it's fine.
You can kind of see now that they are like reversing that canon. But yeah, no, it's really funny because like I think I never in my wildest dreams would I think, not let alone did I think I would love an Andor series, but would I be so curious and like anticipating of like what a season 2 could be?
Yeah.
Because like you said, like I want to see where Luthen's story goes. I mentioned it earlier. I'm very curious how Mon Mothma, like it's almost like the Heisenberg, like Jimmy McGill, almost like of like how is she gonna leave like her life?
Yeah,
like for rebellion, because she like her daughter's pretty young.
Right.
So like that's a very close knit family, or I mean at least like with her daughter. It's the husband is less important. But like
she might get found out, honestly.
Yeah,
that she's connected to the rebels, so she probably won't have a choice at that point.
It'll probably be like devastating when it happens next season. Like, I really hope there's not too significant of a time jump with season 2 is my only request. Because
there has to be, because the original pitch for this show was like 4 or 5 seasons, and the production of season 1 was so taxing that they were like, "Fuck that, we're not." Yeah, like Tony Gilroy has said in interviews that he had a heart to heart with Diego Luna, and they were both like, we cannot devote like such a massive chunk to our lives to this. It is just such a massive scale of a production that they're just like, you know what, the plan for all those seasons, we're just going to condense them into one second season. I guess
when I say the time jump thing, my only point is that I don't want them to like not show a lot of these talking points that we're talking about. Like, I don't want next season in passing to hear like, yeah, wasn't it sad when Luthen died? Like, I want to see it, like
Right,
I want to see a
bring Skarsgård in a big way. Yeah, for sure.
Even if there is a time jump in like episode 3 or 4 or something, that's fine. But I at least want to see like all these like things that are being hinted at. Like, I want to see Mon Mothma have to make that difficult choice of like leaving or fleeing her family. I want to see Luthen's endgame. Like, I want to see all these threads that are left unfinished by the show very deliberately. And you know what? I fully trust Gilroy to do it. I fully, at this point, after 12 straight episodes of banger after banger, I trust him.
Yeah.
Like, I have never felt that way about a Star Wars show.
They'll probably space out the mini arcs. If they do the mini arc approach again, it'll be like each one, there's a time jump between each mini arc. That's how I would do it.
That would be great. I mean, even if it's like 1 and 2 is like a 2-year, like each 2 episodes is like another like year and a half, and then that can compile up to 10 years almost if you really think about it.
I don't think we have that much time to cover though.
I was about to ask, because like, how soon is this before Rogue One? I know there is an answer.
In between what's it called? Sith and New Hope, it's like roughly 20 years, right? And Cassian has to be around that age.
I just Googled it, and I like how Google doesn't know the exact answer. It says about 5 years. Not even 5 years, about 5 years.
Andor takes place about 5 years before New Hope or before
Rogue One. Well, Rogue One, New Hope. Yeah, same thing. Okay. Yeah. So, honestly, like and that's easy, honestly. Like, you can have
this first season was roughly a year-ish, right? Like, how long was he in the prison? We don't really know.
I mean, how long did the heist planning and everything? Like, I mean, there's so much of that is like really left to interpretation. That I think a year is very fair in terms of like assuming, and so that gives you like 4 years left before Rogue One, and that's plenty
even if
of
it's
time.
5, like they'll be able to do it.
It's literally going to end with fucking what's her name, Felicity Jones running into
Jyn Erso. No, it's gonna end with Mace Windu saying, "Are you interested in joining the Rebel Alliance initiative?"
What all these stupid Rebel Alliance characters that people pretend they have nostalgia for, like Biggs or some shit, or Porkins. Oh my god, just like people that have like fake nostalgia. Like, you can't convince me anyone has nostalgia for Porkins. Like, who's that motherfucker? Is it Biggs that appears in Rise of Skywalker for like 5 seconds? He's like Lando's gunner in the Falcon.
Sure.
He's like Luke Skywalker's. He's the guy that grew up on Luke Skywalker's on Tatooine with Luke, and then he went to the Rebel Alliance in A New Hope. And the actor came out and said he hates Star Wars, and then he came back for a 5-second cameo as Skywalker. But my point is,
didn't they announce a Lando show?
Yeah, and it's unclear if it's what's his name or Donald Glover.
If they brought Donald Glover in to this, that would be so cool.
I would love it. Genuinely, I would like adore it. The problem is, and I think Donald Glover thinks this too, I think he's too good for it. Not that he's too good for Andor, but I think almost that he's like that Lando show that he's talking about. Like, my ideal like Lando show is like it begins with like Billy D like talking about his past, and then it cuts to like
Lando has to think about his whole life before he goes on stage. If
there's just like an 8-episode miniseries about like Lando like swindling people and like gambling, and like make it like an Ocean's 11-esque kind of movie with Lando, dude, sign me up. I kind of have a feeling though that's not going to happen. I think that's going to be one of those things that never happens.
I'm worried that Andor is going to feel like an outlier. In my hopes and dreams, it would set a new standard for Disney and for Disney Plus, and Kevin Feige would catch a whiff, and everything that they're putting out would be on this quality. I'm worried that that's just not going to happen. and that this was like the one that got away. Like Gilroy like snuck this one in there.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
I wonder, because I think last time I checked, the viewership was decent but not great. But season 2 is already filming, so we're safe. Like it's not a matter of getting renewed. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's a matter of whether or not they're going to learn a lesson from it.
Apparently, it hasn't gotten great viewership. I mean, just goes to show about like what we started out at the beginning of the episode talking about, how like none of our friends have watched this show pretty much.
Yeah.
You know? And,
a lot of it could be accredited to like, what we were talking about with
burnout, like, oversaturation,
the fatigue of it all. And then, I mean, we were texting about it a few weeks ago, I think before the finale. And we were like, I think I told you, I was like, it's really fucked up that they made this post Obi-Wan when everyone gave up, because like if this came out like in the Mandalorian like height, people would be like watching the shit out of it. I mean, it's bad if they're like showing it on ABC, which is what they're apparently doing. They're literally showing it in freeform. All I can do, I mean, again, at the end of the day, season 2 is confirmed. It's happening. It's literally started shooting this past week. So like we're good, we're seeing it through to the end. But I think just in terms of like, I want people to watch the show. I want people to watch the show because it's good, and I want people to believe that Star Wars can still be good. Because it also just good art. It's like genuinely art. Like it's great. It's compelling.
Ideas, real ideas, great writing, great characters. Like, man, I just didn't think that Star Wars still had that in it. And it's true to what George Lucas wanted to do originally. George Lucas, the Star Wars was not about itself. In the beginning, it was very simplistic, and Lucas always had, family friendly, kid friendly stories in mind first and foremost. Andor's not kid friendly or family friendly, but it is rooted in a lot of what Lucas was interested in, which is like real stories about, there's a reason why it's called the Empire. Like he wanted to tell a story about imperialism. And, this is what this is.
I need to find out the title of the book. My friend Zach got it for me for my birthday. It's about that. And I was reading the first few pages of it, and it's literally about that. How like Lucas, I think he was like I think it was a little bit after Vietnam, the first movie came out. And he apparently, like the Vietnam War is what inspired the way he depicted the Empire.
The United States, the American oppression of the Vietnamese people. It's right there.
That's just, I guess at the end of the day, to maybe sum up this episode, this one goes out to the people that are saying you shouldn't make Star Wars political. I think this goes out to
political. Always has been.
It's Star Wars. It's wars. Are you telling me wars aren't political? Wars are political. It's the same people that say you shouldn't make Star Wars political are like the people that I think there are people that like in a very valid way love the prequels, and then there are the people that like love it because it's like the thing they grew up with, and they're like, but in the same breath say it shouldn't be political, even though those are the most political Star Wars movies.
Even though that's what George Lucas was like the most interested in. That's why he made the fucking prequels all about taxes, political machinations.
This one goes out to the people that still don't understand that the US is the empire. This one goes out it's really, this one's for the homies. Like it really is. It's because I truly believe I thought this with The Last Jedi when it came out, and I think I can officially finally put Andor in that canon too, where I think the Disney era has shown a lot of true colors with people and how they consume Star Wars. And I really think I only will trust people that like Andor and they like The Last Jedi.
Right.
I mean, you can like any of the other ones too. That's perfectly fine. But how you feel about these two things, and I'm not saying you're invalid. It's like whatever if you have a different opinion than me. But I'm just saying, as far as like me trusting you with like taking your like opinion with merit or like trusting your take on it.
And there are people that have fair criticisms of The Last Jedi. Like it's
Sure.
not a perfect movie, but what we're talking about is like the people that are quick to be like, why are there black people and why are there women in my Star Wars? That's not Star Wars. You're making it woke. The liberal media is making my Star Wars woke by putting a black lady as the villain of Obi-Wan. Fire Kathleen Kennedy.
No, 100%. And I think, The Last Jedi, I mean, I have like a running gag with a friend where I still like, he hates that movie, and every time he criticizes it, I'm like, in the 5 years that I've like it's been out, you have not made one compelling point about it. Like, and he's not necessarily on that train that you're talking about, but he like, me and Joey were hanging out, and we were talking to this guy he hates Last Jedi, and he was talking about like, for example, like bombs dropping in space and how gravity, blah, 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 blah. And then Joey went like, he's like, yeah, but like, what about like actual issues? He's like, and Joey, because Joey was like, I forgot what he said exactly. He's like, because you can't tell me you give a shit about gravity. And then I went into something like, I'm like, well, if you really care about gravity, I can't wait to tell you that like the Kessel Run isn't real, and like,
right, exactly,
and like hyperspace is not an.
Did you know that the Force was made up?
Yeah, like, it's such a weird hill to die on of like specifics about like logic in Star Wars. I'm like, because like even though it's like the Rise of Skywalker point where like Rey like kills that worm, it's like they made up that power. I'm like, dude,
they made it all.
My guy,
it's all made.
I'm like, Leia wasn't his sister until the last movie. Like it's so
Star Wars isn't real. It's all made up.
It's all movie by movie, and like obviously to a different extent with the sequel trilogy, sure. But my point remains, I think. And I guess to cap it all off, to talk about all the glup shittos and all the content and all the man babies and the crying, it's really nice to watch one of these that feels like it's for adults.
Yes, exactly. For real this time.
Yeah. For real. I feel like we were promised that so many times over.
With Mando. I mean, Mando, it seemed like, and the good thing about Mando is it feels like it's for everyone. Yeah. But this one just feels like, this one's for real for adults. But yeah, I'm really happy we got a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
And most of all, like as a final thought, I'm glad that I really feel like Star Wars has reclaimed a certain relevance in terms of quality. That it used to have, and that it seemed like it was going to have, all the way back when The Force Awakens came out. God, we were so young back then.
So young.
And now
when I was
finally
crying over trailers. Yeah.
And now finally it seems like I can wholeheartedly love Star Wars without an asterisk. And that's the feeling that the show has given me, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like there is still an asterisk, I would say, but I don't necessarily view that asterisk as a bad thing. Like, I love Star Wars. I will always love Star Wars. But, that always, since the beginning of time, has come with a caveat here and there,
Well, yeah, when you lump it all in, when you lump in the prequels and, Rise of Skywalker and Obi-Wan, of course. Yes.
Yeah. But no, I get what you're saying, that like, this is it's obviously different. We've spent the whole pod talking about how it's different and how refreshing it is. And because it feels like a breath of fresh air. And I know that's like a term that's kind of overused. But again, it just goes to the very beginning of the conversation that we had, in a sea of content, in a sea of, things that just like, just continuous dumps of content and like overworking and oversaturation of markets and streaming wars and, just so much.
It feels like cinema.
It really does. It feels like it excels past IP and it goes straight to just storytelling, character work, art. And that goes back to the point that we were saying, like how that feels like a low bar. That's just something that used to be the norm, but now it feels like something that's fresh, like compelling characters, like characters I care about and want to follow.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what to tell you. It's refreshing, and it feels groundbreaking almost. I know that's silly to say about a Star Wars prequel show, but it does, because it has
the bar was
itself.
The bar was low.
The bar was low,
and now maybe the bar is high. We'll see what happens from here. All I know is that now I want a Luthen action figure. I
would buy it. I would buy a Luthen Funko Pop. And actually, I think I'm gonna have to get the B2 emo Funko Pop this Christmas for myself as a stocking stuffer. The only thing I'll say before we hop off is the only upcoming Star Wars show that I'm mildly interested in is that Acolyte show. They started shooting that, didn't they? Yeah, and it has like Carrie-Anne Moss and the guy from Squid Game. Yeah, and I forgot the actress's name, but she's in Bodies, 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 and The Hate You Give, and Amandla Steinberg, I think her name is. But yeah, I know she's like the lead of it. But the main draw to that is it's from the showrunner of Russian Doll, which is great. So I really can't wait for that. I think that will be the real test for me about whether or not like we're on a good track moving forward, or if Andor is truly have we leveled up or not. And because Mando season 2 or season 3 comes out next year, and that will be good, and it'll be, but that's its own thing. Like the Acolyte is really, and at least I believe so, the next thing that's not Filoni, that's not Gilroy, it's the next new thing, so to speak. So that's going to be the test, and I hope at some point I don't know if it's 2023 or 2024, I hope me and Ernie reunite and talk about how much we love the Acolyte and how still Star Wars is back. That rebel flag. Yeah. But even if that's not the case, we will be back for Andor season 2, even if it's when I'm like 30. I don't care. I'll wait. I'll wait for it. It should be out next year if all goes well. I read a quote that said Gilroy expected late 2024. Oh, which never mind. I don't know how. I guess the post production will be that bad, but it must be massive. Oh my god. Yeah. Dude. But can't wait. Oh god. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Yeah, I was about to say, because it's a cross pod. So I was gonna quote Star Wars. Do you talk first? Do I talk first? Do you plug first? Do I plug first? You go first. Let me go first. So my name's Adam, in case you're listening on WBAM. Or if you're on AOK and you just forgot who the host name is. And you can follow me on Twitter, Adam_not_Sandler. Again, if you're listening on WBAM, you can follow the podcast on Aggressively OK on all the major outlets like Spotify, Apple, probably the one you're listening on right now. And also my other podcast, Lineal Canon, which is still going strong after 3 years, going great. Talking about slime 2004 movies every week. It's soul crushing and amazing all at once. It's the best. You getting slimed? When are you and Kira getting slimed? As soon as we get nominated for a Kids' Choice Awards, then we'll do it. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching and listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what you thought of Andor. Mm-hmm. And tune in for more Robin Williams talk over on WeBoughtAMic.net. You can find all the other Robin Williams episodes. Steadily moving in this series. We picked way too many Robin Williams movies, and it's taking forever to get through it. It's all clogged up. I feel like I got drafted for it like a year ago, and I'm still not on the pod for it. Yeah. So we're almost in the home stretch, but we're in like full on award season right now. So we're watching a lot of awards movies, and pretty soon we're gonna do our whole best of the year. So that'll be a lot to get into, but thanks for doing this, man. And thanks to your listeners. If you all are listening on AOK, check out all the good stuff that we have going on We Bought a Mic. And yeah, this has been great. Love Andor. This synergy. This is it. This is what the Empire's afraid of. They're afraid of formation. They want to break us up. They want to break up the rebellion. Very weirdly fitting, honestly, in hindsight. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, man.